It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of August 22nd, 1997. We have 8 movies to get to, we got a lot of films to delve into, so let's just go ahead and get to it. Let's start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, that is Demi Moore starring in Ridley Scott's action thriller, G.I. Jane. This is a very interesting movie in a number of ways. Not only is this a very interesting story about the fictional story of the first woman to undergo special operations training similar to the U.S. Navy SEALs, but this, for Demi Moore, this was coming at a very interesting point in her career. Her career kind of took a little bit of a downfall at the beginning of the late 90s when you do stuff like The Scarlet Letter and then Striptease, these really bad movies, your career kind of goes down a little bit because you put so much effort into those movies. You put little effort into those because those movies didn't end up working out as well. But this was a nice return to form for her. In fact, I really like this movie to a point where I could honestly say that this is in my top 3 favorite movies with Demi Moore in them. I surprisingly really enjoyed the hell out of this movie, and I think it works because she has a good director behind her in Ridley Scott, who creates a very good element here in terms of the story. The writing overall is top notch. Her chemistry with Viggo Mortensen in this movie is very good. I like seeing Anne Bancroft in this, playing the senator in this movie, and she has a really good scene, and she has a lot of good scenes with Moore and the rest of the cast in this. I mean, it's a really damn good movie. It's a really damn good film where Moore really shows that, hey, she is still a pretty damn good actress, despite the fact that because she did Striptease in The Scarlet Letter 2 years ago, the Razzies got to give her the award for the worst actress of the year, which really doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but then again, the Razzies don't make a whole lot of sense. And the sad part is, this movie has become somewhat of a joke now, like, not because of the movie itself, but because, of course, of what happened at last year's Oscars. Not this one that just happened, the one in 2022, when Chris Rock made the joke about Jada Pinkett and basically said G.I. Jane 2, and that was, of course, that led to the Will Smith smash, which we've talked about it at length already. I still am of the belief that both of those guys are in the wrong there. Will Smith should not have gotten up there and slapped him, but Chris Rock should know better to tell a better joke than that. I mean, there was no point in making that joke, and sadly, that's what G.I. Jane now has become kind of relevant for nowadays, which is a shame because the actual movie is actually really good. There are so many memorable moments in this movie, like the funniest moment to me is when Demi Moore is telling the guy to suck her dick, and like everyone else just like, suck her dick, and they all start chanting on like, suck my dick. It's like that's funny. That's actually good funny stuff in there, and that's actually what I really like about the film a whole lot, is that it has a little bit of a sense of humor to it, and I thought the movie was very, very good. I think it's a movie that deserves a lot more attention because of what happened last year. But it's still a really good movie. It's still a very damn good film. I like going back to it every once in a while. I think it's a very good film, a very underrated film too. One of Ridley Scott's more underrated films too as well. It's a nice return to form for Demi Moore. She still proves that she still is a very good actress, and she plays the role here very well. It's a great film. I can't recommend it enough. Definitely go check out G.I. Jane if you haven't seen it already. It's more than worth the watch. So, that's G.I. Jane. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we have here, and that is Charlie Sheen and Chris Tucker in Brett Ratner's Money Talks. Of course, this was Brett Ratner's directorial debut as a feature director. He had directed many music videos up to this point, but this was his first movie, and of course, you have Chris Tucker there, which the two of them would eventually work together on the next 3 Rush Hour films that will come starting after this movie. And it's a pretty slick movie. It's very reminiscent to something like Nothing to Lose, which we talked about with Tim Robbins and Martin Lawrence. I'd go as far as to say that this is actually a little bit better than Nothing to Lose, even though I like Nothing to Lose a lot. It's a really good movie, and it does show Chris Tucker's range as an actor. Like, I like how he does start off as a really annoying person at the beginning, but once you get used to the character, and he's given more of an opportunity to be funny, it actually turns out to be something really, really funny. He's actually really good in the movie, and I like his comedic chemistry with Charlie Sheen. You have Heather Locklear in a very good role here, too. It's interesting that her and Sheen would eventually reunite for Spin City in the years to come. You also have Paul Sorvino in the cast as well. Just a really funny movie. It's a very slick, funny film. It knows what it wants to be. It doesn't try to have this big message to you or anything. It just wants to have a good time with it. And in the late summer, when you usually get is the second half of a dumping ground in most years. It's a nice welcome film. It's a film that I think really does deliver a whole lot of really good funny moments. It's a film that works a lot on a number of levels. I had a good time with it. I think it's a really funny film. Definitely not one of Brett Ratner's best films overall, but a nice start to his directing career. I'm not gonna get smack about that. Trust me, there's other films in his career that we can definitely talk smack about, but we will eventually get to those ones a little bit later on. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and talk about another director who's essentially making it's one of his first big mainstream movies, Guillermo del Toro, with our next film, Mimic. So the premise of Mimic is basically you have this entomologist, Dr. Susan Tyler, played by Mira Sorvino, who genetically creates this insect to kill cockroaches, carrying a virulent disease, and now the insects are out to destroy the only predator, and that is, of course, mankind. It's a very formulaic film, and in fact, there have been a number of movies like this that are very similar to one another, but it's interesting how this one kind of broke the mold a little bit, and I think it's because of what Guillermo del Toro brings to the table here. This is still very early on in his career. He only directed Cronos just 4 years prior to this, and that was pretty much it. This is the first real movie that people really knew about him, and he co-wrote a script with Matthew Robbins, who's written a lot of movies of this type, and it would have been so easy for this to be a generic horror thriller, but there actually is some cleverness to it, and I think it works because the cast in this elevates the film. You have people like Mira Sorvino, you have people like Jeremy Northern, Josh Brolin, Charles S. Dutton, F. Murray Abraham, Norman Reedus. I mean, a good cast overall in this film, and I think that this elevates it to another level because everybody looks at this because everyone looks at this at first and goes, "Oh, here we go again, another generic rip-off film, a monster movie." But it's an entertaining film, and I know that Guillermo del Toro didn't get a whole lot of approval on this, and he didn't really get a chance to do his own version of this because he lost Final Cut privileges, and he did not approve the film when it was released. But he was given a chance to work on a director's cut that came out almost 15 years afterwards, which is the one I saw for the first time. And that's one that I thought really worked so well. I did not see the regular theatrical cut of this. And I think this movie really is a lot better than I think a lot of people give it credit for. Only going from the director's cut alone, I think it's a solidly entertaining film. As far as the regular version goes, I've never seen it, and quite frankly, I'm pretty glad that I didn't. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we've got here, and that is Leave It to Beaver. I think I'm more worried about why the hell Universal thought this was going to work in 1997. I mean, Leave It to Beaver is a show, of course, that came from the 1950s and 60s. Let me see here. Yeah, 1957 is when it first came out. They did a revival of the show in the 1980s as well, but even then, it was kind of stretching it a little bit. Trying to bring this to modern times it's not an easy thing to do. You really need to get some good talent on board to make this work here. And despite the fact that it has Brian Levant, the director of The Flintstones, and Jingle All the Way as the writer, it still didn't work out that way. And it has some good casting, too. I mean, Christopher McDonald, of course, from Happy Gilmore, and Flubber, and and the Iron Giant playing Ward is genius casting, I think. Janine Turner from Northern Exposure and Cliffhanger as June is very good casting. I mean, the kid who plays Beaver, too, is not bad in this movie. I think the biggest problem is the movie can't decide what direction it wants to go. Does it want to be something like the Brady Bunch movie where it's a satirical comedy making fun of itself? But I think it doesn't know if it wants to do that or just wants to be a straightforward adaptation of the TV show. And it feels like there's more of that, what I said then, the trying to do a modernized version of the TV series for the 90s instead of just being a satirical comedy, even though there's elements where they do try to handle that. But it just doesn't work very well here. I remember I went to go see this movie at an early screening for it. It was one of those Saturday morning screenings they used to have at the old movie theater I used to go to. And we had the hats and everything and the posters. I think I still have the posters somewhere around here. And I guess as a kid I didn't mind it so much. But then when I went back to watch it again, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, this really does not hold up very well. Like all these other TV adaptations, you can tell were at least trying to modernize it while also making fun of the old TV series itself, like the aforementioned Brady Bunch movie, or even something like the Beverly Hillbillies or Sergeant Bilko, which I think are much funnier movies than this. This just doesn't know which direction it really wants to go, and it just really, it's a shame because there is some is because in the hands of a good director and a good writer, I think maybe this could have worked out well. But when you make only $10 million on a film that only has a budget of $15 million, then it's probably not a good idea to remake this for a modern generation. I think they actually said they were going to do two more sequels to this, but then they shut those down after the film underperformed. Like, if your film underperforms with a $15 million budget with a property like Leave It to Beaver, then clearly you have some problems here. And luckily, we didn't get to see those movies, but yeah, the movie just fails to update itself for a modern audience. It doesn't really have that charm that the original series had. And like I said, it doesn't know which direction it really wants to go for. It never really decides what's the final end result it wants to take on. I mean, it's just not a very good film, plain and simple. It's a film that I remember liking it as a kid, but going back and watching it later on, I realized that, yeah, I was a kid. I'd like anything that comes out around that time period, but as I grow up, I realized that, yeah, not a good film. Not a very good film whatsoever. So with that said, let's Leave It to Beaver. Let's go ahead and move on to another comedy, Greg Kinnear and Lauren Holly starring in A Smile Like Yours. Another one of those comedies I saw on videotapes for Paramount movies back in the day, and I thought, I mean, this could actually be something interesting. I mean, Greg Kinnear was actually in a really good movie that came out the year before with Dear God, which is a very underrated film. And Lauren Holly's a really good actress. I mean, it has a lot of talent involved here. Joan Cusack, Jay Thomas, Jill Hennessy, Christopher McDonald again, Donald Moffat, Shirley MacLaine. But, you know, when Shirley MacLaine is uncredited in this movie, that's probably not a good sign for the film. And sure enough, when I saw the film finally, yeah, I could kind of see what everybody was talking about. This is not a very good movie. It's a simple concept. You have a couple trying to conceive a child, but they end up having these situations where Lauren Holly's character stops using birth control and doesn't tell Danny, and it puts a strain on their relationship. Danny, of course, being Greg Kinnear's character, and she discovers she has fertility problems, and so they decide, you know what, we're just going to have an affair, and it's just like, really? Like, this shouldn't be that tough of a concept to do. In fact, they tried to do a movie like this similar to 7 Years Prior with Gene Wilder and Christy Lottie, which was Funny About Love, which is a horrible movie, but at least it's not that movie is horrible compared to this film. I mean, this film, it's just not clever. It's not clever. It's not really all that funny, and it's a shame because there are possibilities with this film that could really work if you had a good script to work with, but these people that don't really have a good track record in terms of the director, Keith Samples, a former syndication executive at the time, he was one of the head people at Reicher Entertainment, so I guess this was his baby, kind of like how Robert Shea runs his company, ran his company at New Line, and then Kevin Meyer, who has not written a whole lot of memorable films to his name. I mean, the best thing he had done before this was Stepfather 2, which that pretty much should tell you everything you need to know about this movie here. It's just not a good movie whatsoever. It's a disappointment, too, considering the talent that they have on here. And there is possibility for a funny moment with this, for funny elements to this, but it just doesn't really have it there. It's just not an entertaining film whatsoever, and I was disappointed when I saw this for the first time. Should have been a whole lot better than what it is. So that's A Smile Like Yours. Let's go ahead and move on to the next film we have here, and that is Patrick Stewart in Mastermind. Let's just call the film what it really is. The film that this director did before he eventually ruined his career with Battlefield Earth. This is directed by the same guy that did Battlefield Earth, Roger Christian. And it has Patrick Stewart, who I swear, I guess they took him from, I have to think they took him from the same set that they took him from Conspiracy Theory, because he looks like the same character. Just take away the glasses and give him more of a mustache, and it looks like the exact same character. But I will say this, he is one of the best things about the film, but the movie itself is not that great. You have Vincent Kartheiser from Mad Men, who is this computer engineering protege who matches wits with a security consultant who has taken over his stepsister's school that he's used to go as a ransom as demanded for their release. So in a way, it kind of sounds like, of all things, that Dexter's Laboratory episode where the janitor forces Dexter to stay in the school forever with a Die Hard scenario. Like, it's the episode Trapped Under Vengeance. I mean, that's the first thing I thought of when I saw the trailer for this. I'm thinking, I mean, that's a shame when a Dexter's Laboratory episode has a better concept to this than an actual movie. And it's got good actors involved. Like I said, Stewart, Kartheiser, Brenda Fricker. It's got a good elements to it. It's got a lot of good talent involved here. The script overall is just not that entertaining. It's a film that tries to be kind of a kiddie version of Die Hard, but not that great. And it's not that enjoyable of a film. The only thing, like I said, I really liked about it was Patrick Stewart in it. I think he's the one thing that keeps the movie afloat. But other than that, though, it wasn't that good of a film whatsoever. It's a movie that kind of came and went, and you could definitely see why. So that is Masterminds. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie here, the re-release of Dirty Dancing. Actually, I had to take from the original 1987 release of the film because even though this did have a theatrical release in 1997, there was no commercials that I saw on there, nor were there trailers, so that's why I took that little clip there from the TV spot. But Dirty Dancing, 10th anniversary re-release. This was a film that did pretty well, and actually was the first was when the movie came out. Like, it earned over $214 million worldwide, and was also the first film to ever sell 1 million copies on home video, which is incredible to really think about. As far as the film itself goes, it's a film that I never really got into, honestly. Like, it was a movie that I thought wasn't terrible per se. Like, it does have memorable moments to it. I do like Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey in here. I think they work off each other very well here. The overall story itself just isn't really all that interesting. I think the best part of the movie really is the ending when he has to win her back at the talent show, and of course they had that great moment of the song I've had the time of my life, and the dancing there is very good. But other than that, though, I don't really remember too much more about the movie. I know that Jerry Orbach was in there, so was Wayne Knight, pre-Seinfeld. But other than that, though, also it had a really good soundtrack too, not just of newer hits, but classic songs. Like you had the Ronettes' "Be My Baby," "Big Girls Don't Cry," the Contours' "Do You Love Me," Eric harmonized, like I said, a mix of modern songs and new songs, which honestly the soundtrack really is probably one of the best things about the movie. But I think, to me, what kind of dies it down a little bit was the numerous attempts to try to bring this back into other forms. Like, they had that terrible sequel with January Jones, which actually was a prequel, Dirty Dancing Havana Nights, which actually took place during the Cuban Revolution in 1959. And the fact that Swayze got paid $5 million for a cameo in that movie, which I thought was just like, yeah, that really did not work well for me. But and they also did another remake for ABC, which was not that great either, which had Abigail Breslin in it. And they're actually going to do an official sequel with Jennifer Grey in it, which is supposed to come out next year. But at the same time, I don't know. It's got Jonathan Levine as the director. He's made a lot of good films, so maybe it's got a shot. But at the same time, I'm just over it, man. Like, I didn't think the first movie really wasn't all that great, except for the ending and the chemistry between the two leads. And that's just my personal opinion. I know a lot of people really like the movie, so it's just my take on it. I was never really that big of a fan of the movie, but I could see the appeal of why this thing had a lasting legacy to it. I mean, you see it everywhere. You see it in when you have Eli Manning and Odell Beckham Jr. doing the exact same thing in a commercial for the Super Bowl, like, you've left a lasting legacy. I mean, so what do I have to say about it? What else more do I got to say about it? Dirty Dancing, most people really like it. I'm kind of mixed on it, honestly. So with that said, on to the last movie we have here, the animated feature, Pippi Longstocking. I always wondered why the animation looks so familiar, and then I looked up the information here. Nelvana, of course, they were the guys that did Care Bears. They did the Star Wars animated holiday special as well. A bunch of other classics from the 70s, and you can definitely tell it's their animation style here. Again, like with Escape from Castle Mountain, the Swan Princess sequel, I have no idea that this was actually released in theaters. I remember seeing the commercials for this on video, and this serves as the pilot for the spin-off TV series that later went on to HBO. And it's basically kind of the origin story of Pippi Longstocking, like her story from when, like how the story begins, of course, from the best-selling books as well. This is actually not the first time Pippi Longstocking has been adapted into a movie. The last one was the movie that came out almost 10 years ago, which was directed by Dennis Dugan, who has later become known as the director of many of Adam Sandler's movies. But, yeah, I don't remember too much about this movie, honestly. I know that Catherine O'Hara was in it, as well as Dave Thomas, among the voice cast. But other than that, though, I don't really remember a whole lot about it. I think I watched it one time. I rented it one time. Didn't leave a lasting impact on me. I never saw the animated series that came from it. So yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. I don't remember too much about it, but what I remember from it wasn't the worst, but at the same time, it wasn't that great either. So I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I don't remember a whole lot of people really mentioning it all that much. So other than that, it came out this weekend. Might as well talk about it. So that is the animated Pippi Longstocking. And that's going to do it for another episode of Time About the Movies. We'll head into Labor Day weekend 1997 on the next episode with 5 movies, including Hoodlum. We also have Alicia Silverstone in Excess Baggage, Kevin Sorbo in Call the Conqueror, She's So Lovely, and Trojan Eddie. So 5 movies overall to look at next time around. We'll delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And as always, hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. So with that said, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time. So until then, as always, take care.